Welcome to this latest edition of the Ril Dil podcast, episode 917 of the Ril Dil podcast. Hope everybody out there is having a great week up to this point. We have a lot to cover on this as we look back at week 4 of the NFL, get into a little boxing as well, and some NBA. NBA definitely it was a big week. A major week of NBA as far as trades goes and just the landscape of the Eastern Conference. But as always, we start out with our themes, and our theme for this week in NFL was, to me, they're still not ready for the big boys, and we had two teams that kind of got exposed for who got exposed for being good teams. Possibly very good teams, but not yet quite great teams or championship caliber teams. And I'm mainly talking about the Miami Dolphins, the Cleveland Browns. I don't know what, a lot of talk was about their defense. I'm not going to chew their lunch up too much, considering they had no Deshaun Watson. We'll get to them. But I'm mainly focused on this mainly goes towards the Miami Dolphins. And that's where we're going to begin in terms of our All the Thoughts segment. Buffalo is rolling. The Bills have the number 1 point differential in football right now. They are, after that, just inexcusable opening week loss, Monday night loss to the Jets of course, with Brett Favre. Aaron Rodgers goes down like 4 plays into the game. They lost that game. But that, again, week 1, you can kind of toss out the books. Buffalo ever since then has been destroying people. They just totally annihilate the Miami Dolphins. Now, this game, I thought this game at 14-14 was headed towards one of those just 41-38, 45-41 type shootouts. The first 4 possessions of this game, neither defense had a chance. The offenses were just going up and down the field at will. But Buffalo's physicality ended up taking over. And the bottom line is, listen, you can have the fastest players on earth. You can have some of the fastest players in the NFL history. If you don't win the game is still won at the point of attack. Go ask Kansas City a couple of years ago against Tampa Bay, and that's Super Bowl about 3 years ago. The game is still won. You still have to block. You still have to protect your quarterback. You still have to do a decent job of running the football. And Miami got their asses kicked at the point of attack. And Miami, Miami's a very good team. I think they without question, I think Miami will be in the playoffs if Tua can stay healthy. But as far as, you look at some of these top teams, when I look at Kansas City, when you look at San Francisco, look at Philadelphia, look at their offensive defensive lines. That's why I don't even think Dallas is there. I don't think Dallas is. I think you can run on Dallas. I think you can get physical with Dallas. Those 3 teams, like Kansas City, San Francisco, Philadelphia, and now Buffalo, those are the most physical teams in the NFL, and it's not coincidence that those are probably the favorites to go to and win the Super Bowl. Miami is just quite not there yet. They can't. They are built on speed. They have weapons. Again, their weapons are tremendous. But on a day where, to give Buffalo credit, Buffalo holds Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle to 7 catches for 104 yards and 0 touchdowns between them. Okay, Tyreek Hill had 1 rush for 14 yards. Again, 14-14. Buffalo goes on to outscore them 34-6 after that. And Buffalo, this is the thing about Buffalo, and this is why they're a legit Super Bowl contender. They rank second in points. They rank second in points for and against right now, and they rank 6th in total offense, total defense. They are a complete football team. Now, that Tre'Davious White injury is going to hurt. It's going to hurt. That guy is a all-pro caliber quarterback. They don't make those guys. Those guys don't fall off trees. That's going to hurt. So please don't discount that. Now they'll get Von Miller back, so that can kind of negate that somewhat. If you get a top pass rusher back and your secondary isn't as good, which it won't be. So, but if you get even 70% of Von Miller, again, that can negate that, but that injury somewhat. That is a big injury, to say the least. But thoroughly impressed with Buffalo. They went out there and didn't play with their food at all. Division rival, well, you can't even call it a rivalry. They've owned Miami, especially since Josh Allen and McDermott got to Buffalo. They just have had Miami's number. And listen, if you're Miami, look, this is Buffalo, Kansas City. Those two teams are the teams that you're chasing in the AFC. There's no two ways about it. I think over the course of this season, especially when we come upon the trade deadline, if you're Miami, you got to trade for some physicality. You have to trade with some physicality on, like, not so much with pass protection, but I'm just talking about in terms of overall, especially with your defense. You can't listen. There will be games where, as good as Tua is, there will be games where you might have to win 24-21. You're not going to outscore everybody. It's just not going to happen. I mean, even Kansas City has morphed into a team that can play great defense and doesn't have to output 35 on the board every week to beat you. You got to be able to win. You want to be a championship team, you have to be able to win in multiple ways in the NFL. That's all there is to it. And right now, Miami can only win one way, and that's with their offense. Great offense, but on this day, Buffalo had all the answers, and give the Bills a lot of credit. This was their first major test of the season, and they answered it with flying colors. And again, listen, if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, you are still like you're happy, but you're not excited. You know what you're playing for. You know what the stakes are. You know how big of a year this is. You know that you're not playing for September and even October wins. It's all about January, because Buffalo's probably going to win that division. They're going to the playoffs. It's all about January. But this was a major step. You're looking to build on habits. This was their first major hurdle, and they passed it with flying colors. So, tremendous job out of the Buffalo Bills. Miami still has some work to do. Marquee games. So, yeah, a couple that we'll talk about. Kansas City, the Jets. Again, this is a tough game to watch. Frankly, it's a tough game to watch. You have no Aaron Rodgers, and you know that the Jets are not going to win this game. And they jump out Kansas City jumps out 17-0. And Kansas City, this was the ultimate Kansas City playing down to the competition. Kansas City was up 17-0, kind of on cruise control. Jets tried to make a game of it late, 23-20. Kansas City able to get by, but this is one of these games where Kansas City, Zach Wilson outplayed Patrick Mahomes, which like you would never thought in a gazillion years that you would see that happen, but it actually happened. Patrick Mahomes had his worst game of the season, did not play well whatsoever. Kansas City, they're Kansas City. They know they find ways to win. They have multiple ways in terms of being able to win a game, know how to win a game. They're a championship team. We know this. And the Jets are the Jets. The Jets, they get before you get the beer out your refrigerator, the Jets are down 17-0. At that point, they're not. We know that they are not a big time offensive team. That's 17. They can't afford to get down 10-0, and that was just too much for them to overcome. But again, not a very well played game. Again, when one team is clearly better than the other, and they play down in a competition, it was competitive, but just not. It's sloppy. Mahomes wasn't good. So this game, again, the Aaron Rodgers injuries is going to hurt a lot of primetime games, because the Jets are, they're going to probably get flex out of some, probably, I'm sure some December games, but up until that point, you just gotta live with some of these New York Jets games without of course, the great Aaron Rodgers. Baltimore over Cleveland 28-3. All I heard about over the course of the week was how great this Cleveland defense was. People were starting to get crazy, talking about it could be historically great. And I said, hold on, but let's hold the brakes. They have not played great competition as far as great offenses as of yet. This game, again, now there was no Deshaun Watson, so from that standpoint, I'm not going to give him a complete pass, but Baltimore was able to run the ball for 131 yards. a great defense does not give up 131 yards rushing, especially when you know what's coming. Like you know what Baltimore is going to do. Baltimore does not disguise. Like there's no secret to what Baltimore is going to do. So I don't want to hear anything more about how great this Cleveland defense is. It's a very good defense. They'll probably finish in the top 10, maybe even higher. But it was the talk about the Cleveland defense was starting to get nauseating. This is not an all time great defense. It's only been a small sample size. 3 games is not enough for me to start going crazy over a defense. San Francisco, that's a great defense. Like that is a top defense right now. Legit defense. You can't run on them, but you can run on the Cleveland Browns. Another just again, and I'm starting to notice a trend here. Like the last 2 weeks, Lamar Jackson has been spectacular. The last 2 weeks against Cincinnati and now against the Browns. 15 and 19, 186 yards, 2 touchdowns. He didn't even have to run. Like he didn't have to. He was spectacular again for the second straight week, and it was very, very quiet. Not a lot of talk about Lamar Jackson's performance. Not a lot. Just that I don't remember. Again, it's only Tuesday, but even something. I did not hear a lot of talk about Lamar Jackson on Sunday. I did, to be honest with you. He again a second straight spectacular performance from Lamar Jackson. So again, I don't want to hear about Cleveland's defense, for at least another month. Again, Myles Garrett is a monster. We know this guy's one of the top 5, 6, or 7 handful of the great defense players in the league. He's a great player, but they're a very good defense, not a great defense. They're just not. There are holes. You can run on that defense, and I can't call a defense great if you can run on it. That's a hallmark of great. You couldn't run on the 85 Bears. You couldn't run on the 2000 Ravens. Okay, you could not run on those defenses. You couldn't. Those are great. That's a hallmark of a great defense. You could not run on the 92 Eagles or the 92 Cowboys, for that matter. Those are great defenses. So, and you can go all down the line with the Steelers, Steel Curtain, and what have you. A hallmark of a great defense, you cannot run on that defense. All right, we're going to break it up a little bit, a little change of pace. We'll get back to the football. So the NBA the last week has turned into a Eastern Conference arms race between the Celtics and Bucks. These are 2 teams that have met in the playoffs. They are clearly rivalry. It's clearly one of the best rivalries in the league. They had that epic 7-game series in 2022 when Giannis was just off the charts, but it wasn't enough. Damian Lillard goes to Miami. Excuse me. I'm sorry, Miami. I really didn't mean to say that. That was a slip, or maybe it wasn't. Damian Lillard ends up with Milwaukee, and that leads to Drew Holiday going from Milwaukee to Portland to Boston. Listen, you look at the top 6 players on each team. These are probably the 2 best top 6s. Probably in the NBA right now. I would say Boston first, Milwaukee second. Denver's right there as well. This is what you love about basketball. This is what you love about the NBA. You get Damian Lillard, who is a generational shooter and a great scorer on a team, and immediately when this trade was made, I'm like, well, Milwaukee is the team to beat. By nose over Denver. It's close. They're a team to beat. Boston gets Drew Holiday. Scratch that. Boston is now the team to beat. Boston's top 6. I mean, you got Tatum, Brown, Holiday, Derek White, Porzingis, and Al Horford. Now, they're not as deep as they once was, but you don't have to be that deep. You're only playing 7 to 8 players. You're only playing 7 really in the playoffs when it's Monday, when it's nut crunching time. Like coaches only don't trust that many players in the playoffs, especially deeper into the playoffs, conference finals, and what have you. Boston's defense is going to be legitimately just terrifying, like terrifying. you have a backcourt of Derek White and Drew Holiday. That like those guys. I mean, those guys are like ball hogs, are like ball hawks. Like you have their teams will have trouble crossing half court against that some of that defensive pressure they have. So their defense is going there. Like last year, the defense took a step back. This year, they will be again a top defensive team without question. Milwaukee again, offensively, Milwaukee is going to skyrocket. The Giannis, Damian Lillard pick and roll will be lethal. Giannis will have driving lanes that he hasn't seen probably in eons with the shooting and with the attention that you have to give to Dame Lillard. Now the defense is going to take a small step back, but what Dame Lillard will more than make up for that offensively. But he will. He is again. This guy is a great offensive player. He's coming off one of his best years of his career, so there's still some gas in the tank, without question. The thing that I like about what's happening is the amount of pressure that is on both teams. These two teams probably have the most pressure of any teams in the league right now. Like seriously, like you're talking about in Milwaukee has a championship, but they are trying to keep Giannis. Okay, Boston hasn't won a championship since 2008, and next year you're gonna have to pay Jason Tatum a supermax deal. He'll be all NBA this year, and you're gonna have to pay him a supermax deal. So they have about a 1, maybe 2 year window before they have to make some extremely tough decisions about who to keep, who not to keep outside of Brown and Tatum. It's like they're gonna. I mean, like these two teams have to forget about. There's no such thing as a 3 to 5 year plan in the NBA. The NBA has turned into the NFL. It is a win now. Is almost as win now as the NFL is. To be honest with you, it's about this year with these two teams. I mean, the heat is on both of these two teams. They have to win. Like anything less than a championship will be a failure. I'm serious. I'm saying it. I mean, I'm not overstating it. Anything less than a championship from either one of these teams is a failure. It just is. When you make these type of moves. If you're Milwaukee, you're expecting to win the championship this year. It's not about the finals. You've been there, done that. You went to the finals. You won championship in 2021. If you're Boston, you're expecting to win a championship this year. Not about the finals. You've been there, done that. 2022, lost in 6 games to Golden State, was up 2 games to 1. Have taken home court away. So getting to the finals is not enough. It's just not. And these are clearly the two best teams in the Eastern Conference. Clearly, with all due respect to Miami, forget about that. Philly that is a shit show right now. I have no faith in Philadelphia. But there's no surprise team that's coming out the East that I see on the horizon. Knicks will be very good, not ready for that level, of course. But these are the two teams, and again, there's no way outside of any major injuries that they are not going to beat. They are absolutely on a collision course. It would be a conference finals or the finals. I would say conference. I would say that these two teams have the best 2 records in the conference, if not even in the league, and that they will meet in the conference finals without question. Now, again, Boston loses some depth. Milwaukee loses some defense. To get Drew Holiday, to get Dame Lillard, you pay that price. I don't care about future draft picks. I don't care about the assets that they had to give up. These are 2 trades that absolutely had to be made. I love Drew Holiday as a player. I think Drew Holiday is a tremendous leader. He is a top defensive player. He's an excellent, legitimately top 20, top 25 2-way player in the league. He really is. Drew Holiday is one of the top 25 players in this league. But he's not Dame Lillard. From an offensive standpoint, you got Dame Lillard can take over a game, can take over a playoff series. Like that's all there is to it. And the league is an offensive league. You still have to play. You still have to be able to get a stop. But I think Denver kind of opened up the floodgates here with how great they were offensively, and they were great defensively in the finals. But for the most part, Denver dominated the postseason with their offense, and I think Milwaukee sees that and is like, yeah, we had this top defense last year, but in the playoffs, we couldn't get any buckets. Now again, they had the Giannis injury definitely played a role, but even when he got back, they had trouble executing down the stretch of these games, especially in the fourth quarter, and they lost a couple of those close games to Miami in the fourth quarter. They blew in the fourth quarter, especially the last couple of games in that series. Dame Lillard is, a fourth quarter guy. That's all you want the ball in his hands with the game on the line. That's it. And the thing about this is going to make this fascinating. Who's probably going to be, if they meet in the playoff series, who's going to be guarding game Dame Lillard? Drew Holiday, who made one of the great defensive plays in recent finals history 3 years ago. It'll be 3 years once the season starts against Phoenix. Took the ball away from Devin Booker, led to Giannis alley-oop. They go up 3-2, close it out in Game 6 in Milwaukee. This is. I'm telling you, this is going to be. It's going to be fun to watch all season long. These two teams, build chemistry, how it develop over the course of the season, and because we know they are building towards May, towards meeting probably sometimes in middle and late May. Everything's building towards that series. This entire season is going to be a prelude to Milwaukee, Boston, and I'm here for it. These are two top organizations. These are two, minus the Udoka situation, mainly for the most part drama free. For the most part, the Udoka situation obviously was ugly, and obviously Boston as an organization did a horrible job with that situation, to say the least. But these are mostly have been well constructed, well run franchises that have done nothing but win over the last couple of years, win a lot of regular season games. But Milwaukee has a championship. Boston's been knocking on the door. So, and again, like I said earlier, the pressure on these two teams is enormous. It is pressure beyond pressure. These two teams have to win now. Not next year, not the year after, right now. Back to the NFL game of the week. A surprising game of the week because I didn't expect this to stand out. But the Philadelphia Washington was a very good game, a very high level game, to be honest with you. Both quarterbacks played great. The difference was, Philly, you get a bad punt in the overtime. Philly gets the short field, and that was all she wrote. Washington acquitted itself well in this game on the road against a superior team. I thought they went toe to toe with Philly. It didn't seem like it was flukish whatsoever. Philly is 4-0 for the second straight year, and I'm hearing, they're 4-0, but when you're 4-0, there's no but. Like they found a way to win. To be 4-0 and not playing your best football tells you about your team. Because you could easily, look at Cincinnati right now. They're playing terrible football. They're 1-3. So it tells me I look more towards the positive of what Philly is doing right now than comparing them to what they were last year, which for the most part was a dominant regular season team. We knew that they weren't going to be as dominant as they were last year as far as just destroying people. Like that just doesn't happen in the NFL, even if you make back-to-back years of the playoffs. Like you're not going to dominate back-to-back years like Philly did with the point differential. That things kind of even out, and that's just the way it is in the NFL. But like I said, 4-0 is 4-0. Again, Washington acquitted itself well. Hal bounced back and played well. Because they were embarrassed against Buffalo, and he was embarrassed. He was awful against Buffalo. So, it kind of showed you something for a young quarterback to bounce back from his worst performance of his young career. They had opportunities. They jumped out 17-7. Big play in the game was it was 17-10, and Jalen Hurts gets his arm hit, and Washington would have returned it for a touchdown, but they called it a forward pass. That could have been easily an open hand. That was a huge play. Philadelphia kicks a field goal, and they were only down I think 17-13 going to halftime. That was a big play. If that's a fumble, you're talking about possibly 24-10 versus 17-13. So that was a huge play in the game. Philadelphia kind of got it settled down. Uh, Ended up scoring at halftime, before halftime, then scored again to take the lead 21 uh, 21 with the 21-14, excuse me, 21-17 with the 2-point conversion. But give Washington credit. Down 31-24, they went down the field, despite the fact that they had no timeouts in the fourth quarter, which seems to be happening on the regular with the Ron Rivera coach team, that they seemingly never have any fourth quarter timeouts. It's amazing to me how they use or misuse their timeouts and was struggling to get plays in down the stretch. They were fortunate. There was a play. Luckily, the ball was poorly thrown to where if it's caught in the middle, the clock runs out and they don't get a play off. They were able to get 1-2 plays off basically in like 5 seconds. Because one of the passes was incomplete. I don't know what Howe was thinking on that play, that your receiver was going to break 2 tackles and run into the end zone. So it was a bad read by Howe, young quarterback, and luckily the receiver didn't catch it. But give them credit for going down the field, scoring, tying the game. They actually got the ball first, couldn't do nothing with it in overtime, and like I said, it was all she wrote with the bad punt. Stock up, stock down. Stock up. Detroit Lions are playing good football. They handled Green Bay rather easily, 34-20. That game was never competitive. 27-3. I know Green Bay made a little run, but you never thought that they were going to win that game in Lambeau Field. Second straight time that they've won in Lambeau. That division that is wide open for them for the taking. Minnesota's in the tank. Green Bay's okay, but not great, but not not typical Green Bay, of course. And it's that the Bears are Bears. The Lions are clearly the best team in that division. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And that division is right there for them to take this year. And sometimes you get years like that where a division, if they could keep the quarterback healthy, falls into your lap. And it seems like it's going to be one of those years for the Detroit Lions. A team going in the opposite direction that was the Super Bowl representative 2 years ago in the AFC Championship last year, the Cincinnati Bengals. They're off to a 1-3 start. You have Jamal Chase, not happy. He's always fucking open, according to him. Joe Burrow is not looking like Joe Burrow. He's dicked up. This again, when they were 0-2, I told you this had a different feel to it than normal. It had I wasn't comparing them being 0-2 versus them being 0-2 last year. This had a different feel. Just not just the energy around that team. The stuff you read, the press conferences, the things of that nature, it's not good. It's not very good right now. And I'm not even in Cincinnati, of course, but every so often a young team that who's had some early success, they have a year where they take a step back. Like it happens in the NFL, and again, the room for error in the NFL is very small. It's not even if you have a Joe Burrow, and this is a big year for them. Because that Joe Burrow contract will start kicking in next year. They got to make some decisions. So again, 1-3, your season's not over. We know there are a million teams that make the playoffs now with the extra playoff spot, but they are not. This is going to be, they're in a hole right now. They're not in the ditch. They're in a hole. And I just don't like the energy that's coming from that team. And again, Joe Burrow he's not healthy right now. He's not. He does not look like the Joe Burrow we've seen the last couple of years, who was legitimately one of the top quarterbacks in the league. He looks like a shell of himself from that standpoint. So yeah, stock up Detroit, stock down. This is Cincinnati Bengals. We want to root Josh Allen. He outplays Tua. Tua was getting some MVP talk for the game. All the yardage and just these ridiculous numbers that he was putting up. They were averaging. Into that game, Miami was averaging like 43.3 points per game. Now, Buffalo's defense did the job, but Josh Allen was also spectacular and had a perfect rating of 158.3, ran for a touchdown, made the proper reads. Excuse me. The last 2 games he's played extremely well, but this game he was vintage Josh Allen. Like this game reminded you of what he did to New England in the playoffs a couple of years ago. What he did against Kansas City in that classic game a couple of years ago when they lost in the conference the divisional round. Even though they lost, it was one of the great classic, one of the great performances for a losing player that you'll ever see. This is what I mean. Josh Allen is capable of this. Like, we know this guy is uber talented. The talent is never questioned. Some of his decision making can be, some of their play calling, their offensive philosophy can be. But this guy's legit. I mean, he's a legit top 5 quarterback. Like, let's not kid ourselves. Like, I would take Josh Allen on my team as a Commander fan. They're about 95%, 97% of the league that would take, 98% of the league that would take Josh Allen on their team. On their team. So he's playing great right now. Again, he will be measured like the rest of the Buffalo Bills for what he does in January. But right now, coming off that game, in this game, he was completely at the top of his game. And he, by the way, he had the 17-yard touchdown run. Only 17 yards rushing, had a rushing touchdown. The less he runs, I think, the better they are, because that means he's making the proper reads, throwing the ball, and that also means that you have other guys on their team who are effectively running the football. I don't want Josh Allen running for 70, 60, 70 yards. I want to keep that number between probably 20 and 50 yards. When that number goes above 50 for Josh Allen rushing, there's some trouble there. That's not good for Buffalo. One last real thought before I let you go. Got a chance, of course, to see Canelo fight Jamar Charlo. And as expected, there's no way I thought Charlo was going to win this fight. You're going up 14 pounds against a guy who, frankly, at this point in his career is an all-time great. Canelo, this was vintage Canelo. I know Canelo's last couple of fights, 2 or 3 fights, he hadn't fought that really had been kind of off. One of them was a loss, of course, but he was on top of his game in this fight. He was a surgeon. He took apart Charlo from start to finish. It was a tactical destruction, and you never thought Charlo was going to win this fight. Had to forget about was going to win this fight. You guy had any chance to win this fight, and you thought I honestly give Charlo credit for not getting knocked out. He did get knocked down once, but I actually give him credit for hanging in there, because it's definitely got to be hard to be getting your ass kicked for 12 rounds thoroughly. And we'll talk about a lot of people talk about Canelo as a generational fighter, one of the great fighters of this generation. I think he's kind of past that point right now. I think you got to start putting him in conversation as an all-time great in general. Like, he would be great in any era, any decade. Like, this guy is 62 and 2. Now, I understand 2 of those prolific Triple G fights, one of them he definitely lost. You can make a case he lost the other one. Like, one of them, the one that was a draw, was he lost that fight. To me, he lost. The second one that he won, I thought he lost. The third one, of course, it was no contest. He clearly won that third one against Triple G last. They fought last September. But the first 2 were definitely up in question. But Triple G is a great fighter. I think Triple G is without question like one of the best fighters of this generation. Is a great fighter. So you're talking about another world champion. But outside of that, in the Floyd Mayweather situation, he's really had he's 62 and 2. And there hasn't been a better middlemweight, super middleweight, like, in the last decade, in the last 10 to 15 years. And he's remember now, he's fought a lot. He's been in the game for a while now, since he was 15. And he's still near at the top of his game. Like I said, this guy is still pound for pound. I can make a case for him being pound for pound the best fighter in the world. He's in that conversation. Now, I think it's probably Crawford, but I certainly could make a case for him being the best pound for pound fighter, even at the age of 33. And remember this about Canelo. Remember this in regards to Terrence Crawford. This is all I want to say. Crawford at 168 would have no chance against Canelo. If that were going to be a fight, it would have to be at 154 for it to be competitive. It really would be. And if you're Canelo, why are you coming down? Like I'm not coming down. Like I'm the biggest. I'm arguably the biggest name in boxing. I'm the money maker. I'm what he let him come to me. I'm not coming to him. So I don't think you're going to see the Canelo Crawford fight. I do think you'll see Charlo and Crawford because that's doable. Charlo is already a natural 154. Crawford can go up from 147 to 154 probably right or easily. But I don't think Crawford would have any chance. And I think Crawford is a better fighter than Charlo, but I couldn't see Crawford doing anything with Canelo at 168. I just couldn't see it. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Ril Dil podcast. Got a couple podcasts coming out later this week. One was already recorded. I'll drop that in terms of The Wire. I'll drop that later on this week. And of course, Snowfall season 2, episode 7. Yeah, I think we're on 7 now. Yeah, we're on 7. So things are getting a little interesting for this second season, which was a great season. So stay tuned for that. Have a great rest of your week. See you next time.